It looks like I have one person stuck in the waiting room.
I just admitted somebody.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna go for it if you guys can watch that. Okay, welcome everyone. Just a reminder that we are recording this forum and it will be posted to our GCA YouTube channel later today or tomorrow. I don't want to take a lot of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and start us off. I know people are slowly joining us right now, so I'll talk real slow. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy day to join us for the GCA Winter Forum. Everyone except the presenters should be muted. If you have unmuted yourself, please return to mute. This helps reduce the background noise during our presentation. If you have questions that you would like to ask us, please use the Q&A feature, which is now available to us in Zoom for forums. And at the end of each presentation, we will pause to answer these questions. So here's our agenda for today. I will briefly go over some quick GCA announcements. We will go over some new award portal enhancements. We will provide an update on the ASR and mod backlog. We will go over advance requests. We will provide some tips and tricks when preparing an ASR or mod. We will go over Workday award lifecycle statuses and what they mean. And last but not least, we will share some advice on how to contact us. So I'm going to go ahead and start with some general announcements. Do you work with a PI or researcher who'd be willing to do a 30 to 45-minute presentation about their research? GCA has an all-staff meeting on March 5th, and we would really love to have your PI come out and speak with us. If you know anyone who would be interested, please contact us at GCA Help. We would really appreciate that because we really do enjoy those presentations. So, we received a lot of great feedback about our last forum, and I wanted to address some of your questions and your concerns. Many of you said we covered way too much stuff and it was overwhelming, and I totally hear and feel that. So this time around, we did try to shorten our presentations. Please let us know how we did by responding to our survey, which I'll send out later today. We would really appreciate your feedback. It helps us improve a lot. Also, a lot of you felt that we didn't make enough time for questions and that we skipped over a lot of questions and that the chat was very distracting. It was very hard for you to focus on the content. The chat was really distracting for us as well because it made it really hard for us to find the questions so we could answer them. So this is why we have restricted the chat to hosts only. So this means you can still submit your comments to us, but only we will see it and only we will respond. However, we're able to send out messages to everyone in the chat. So if we need to, we will. And then again, we have the new Q&A feature. Well, it's not new, but the released Q&A feature, and it'll help us focus on each individual question we received. So we're very excited to test that out today. Some of you wanted us to go back to in-person meetings and also provide a Zoom link for those who can't attend. So when we used to host these forums in person, we could only get one particular room. And that room could only hold 50 people. And I still remember that one day that we had a lot of turnout and some of the folks had to actually stand for the entire hour at the back of the room because we didn't have any extra chairs and I felt awful. And I never want to feel like that again. So when we, during lockdown, when we had our very first Zoom forum, we were amazed because we had over 100 people attend. And now, I mean, you could probably just look at the participants coming in. Right now, we have 256 people. So having these forums in Zoom really opens it up to everyone. Folks from Fred Hutch can attend. Shoot, someone in Hawaii can attend from the UW. And so it is really better to have these as Zoom only. And also the other thing too is there's no equipment in any of the rooms that we've looked at before to hold in-person forums. Sometimes the equipment doesn't work. And so we do these Zoom presentations from the comfort of our own computer, and we can record them on our computer and then quickly upload them to the GCA YouTube channel. All right, so hopefully that addressed that question. I know a lot of you would like us to see us in person, and we would like to see you too. Oh, and also you guys really want monthly forums. And for me, I honestly take this as a compliment because this means you really like our presentations and you find them very helpful, which is what GCA Help is all about. However, it is super time consuming to prepare these forums, and it also takes us away from our other job duties like answering your emails and your award portal tickets. And our workload has doubled. So we really don't have any capacity right now. I'm not saying no, but what I'm saying is we just can't do it at this time. But again, we really appreciate that you would like to have these forums on a regular basis, like monthly. And then last but not least, we got this really good feedback about the forum slides, and it was someone who had come to the forum late last time, and they thought that if they had access to the slides ahead of time, it would have helped them focus on our presentation. And the reason why we don't provide the slides ahead of time is because sometimes they're not done until like an hour before the presentation. So sometimes it can be hard to do that, but I am just curious. We would like to find out how many of you would like to see these slides ahead of time. So right now I've got a quick poll up, and if you, oh wow, thanks guys. We got a lot of feedback. I'm going to give it a sec because you guys are just on top of this. Oh wow, a lot of you really want us to provide the slides in advance. Holy cow. Okay, well, we're going to keep that in mind. We're going to see what we can do for the next forum, but I promise these slides will be up as soon as possible this afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this poll with us. That is pretty cool. All right. Okay. Ooh, how do I? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl.
Thanks, Azalea. Hi, guys, this is Cheryl. I've got next 3 topics that I'm going to go over. And the first one is going to be about the award portal and some recent updates that we've made that you may or may not have noticed. Whoa, did I move too fast? I did. So the first one I wanted to let you know is that we were struggling to try to identify which of the many, many grant lines is the primary grant line. And we had it kind of buried. You could go into the grant, you had to go to this grant and then look in the grant information to see, was this the primary or is it not? And, you know, some of these grants have hundreds of lines and it was not effective or efficient. And so we asked, hey, can you, so, okay, somebody on my slide, can you update this so that we can see which, just like at a glance, which one's the primary line? So the answer is yes, they could. The systems people are pretty amazing. And they added a little P, which indicates primary. And then at the very same time, we realized we probably need a legend down at the bottom to let you know what the different symbols mean. So P is for the primary award line. The W with the, what's the Workday symbol? I think we all kind of know that by now. That will take you smack into Workday. And then if you see a triangle with an exclamation point, that's going to let you know that this is the new grant line that is replacing one that was canceled. A canceled line mostly occurs if we get the billing wrong or if we have the wrong company. I think we're seeing that is happening a little bit more often. And the only way to fix that kind of stuff is to cancel the wrong line and set up a new one. So that's part one. Part two, this one's one of my most favorite, is that I don't know if all y'all know, but you can click on the expenditures or any of the dollar things have links that will take you to an Excel spreadsheet with itemized information. And so for this case, I'm using expenditures. And what we did is we've added some dates so that it used to be that you only had the accounting date, which didn't really tell you the posting date. And I love this. But anyway, so now you can kind of see like, oh, obviously salary is paying through the 15th, but it doesn't post until the 22nd. So if you're wondering why was something not drawn recently, or maybe it didn't appear on an invoice, this could be super helpful. I'm a fan of simple, and that's how I see this. And the last change that we made is program income has been a little problematic. And the award line amount, we can't put an amount in there because it's, some of you may remember the former form of payment 11, which is program income increases as your revenue increases as you earn money, basically, from within the UW or outside. So we asked our wonderful systems people, could you expose it in some way so people can see how much money this award or this grant program income line has? So I'm sad about the no award line amount, but I am happy to say that we do have now in the revenue field or column, what you see there is basically the award amount for that. And I think it's probably okay that it's not in the award line amount, because it's really not adding to the award, which is, I think, it distorted it in the old system a little bit. Anyway, those are the big three that we got implemented in the last month, basically. Are there any questions about it?
No questions in the chat.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, I'm going to move on. A popular subject is the backlogs and award setup, about the new award setup and the modifications. And so I want to let you guys know we have made some pretty great improvements here. So if you look across, so this is from our web page where we do update this each week. We try to update it around midday on Mondays to kind of show how we did the prior week. And the one thing that has continued to kind of go up is the award setup requests, and that's because they are by far the most complicated and require the most data input. There's a lot that goes into setting those up. I think we can all agree that a Workday gives you a lot of information, but in order to get that, a lot has to be input, and that is what the team is doing. So you can see we went from the end of December, it's just pretty much week over week. The backlog continues to grow because we just can't keep up. The advances, I think we did we're noticing a greater request, or a great number of requests for those. And so they kind of hover around between 30 to 40, maybe, that are in queue, but they can get through those a little faster. And the big improvement is with the award modifications. We've hired a lot of folks, and a lot of the modifications are really simple. And so they had a pretty great approach. They went in and just started doing the ones that they could do. And you can see that they have reduced it in that very same period from nearly 1,000 to under 500. So we're pretty pleased with that. And what we're doing now is taking that pool of folks that are processing those award modifications, and we want to try to train them to show or to process the award setup so that we can kind of make some headway on those too. So you can check this out every week if you'd like. I put the link here. And then the second part, what's right below it, is that we are seeing a link to returned items. So I'm gonna move into my second part of the backlog, which is we can be processing a lot. And what we're noticing is that we're having to return a pretty high ratio, like it's about 50-50. 50% can be processed and notified, and 50 have to be returned for questions. And kind of the top reason is the SAGE budget form. If it is out of balance at all, or it's missing a PI or missing some information, it's a kind of a stopper. And so we have to return the item back to you for information. And so kind of like something that I've noticed is people will ask for things to be expedited and we end up returning it. They're in the same boat. So one thing is that we have added a link to our website where you can just search, which I'll go back to that here real quick. It's down here at the bottom. There's a link you can search, or you can go into Sage and look up your items and see, did we return them? And when they're resubmitted, they'll be prioritized still. We also have some items that we returned back in 2023. And so a lot of them I think may not be needed, but if you can take a look and we don't need it, resubmit it to us with a comment that says, hey, I don't need this anymore, and we can deny it, which kind of takes it out of the pool of work a little bit for both, for all of us. So speaking of the urgent requests that we're getting, before sending an email, definitely take a look at your, first look into Sage to see, has it already been processed? I have had the pleasure of saying, hey, guess what? We processed your item already. So that's like good news. And then the other one is to take a look at your Sage budget. Is the budget in balance? Does it have all the required information? Did you update the grant title? By the way, we won't kick it back for that, but it makes it better when the budget title is when you've picked. And then also for multiple items, we asked originally, to not send a list. And so I think people really needed their stuff and they were sending multiple emails, which is effectively a list. So the request is to kind of help share the love a little bit. Maybe just send one item every couple of days so that we can kind of help and make sure everybody has an opportunity to get their items prioritized. And that concludes part 2 here. Mr. Sal?
So we have a few questions in the Q&A that are being answered, but one that just popped up is there are still items not processed from the beginning of November. Will those receive priority?
Yes, great question. So I actually really appreciate that. So we have completed all of the award setup requests from October. And so the focus right now is in fact November. You guys have been waiting a really long time. Like that's a long time to have to wait. So yes, those are the focus. But keep in mind that we're trying to also include the people, with the urgent requests with the super old stuff too. But I feel like we're getting there. Okay.
Then another question, does GCA have a way to prioritize older ASRs? I know of at least 2 from September that we're still waiting on.
Award setup requests from September?
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. I would say if you could send an email to GCA help with those, because we think that we are current with so we're getting a list of information from Sage, and if those aren't in there, we need to know about them. So if you could send that to GCA help, I'll probably be the one picking it up and seeing what I can find for you. So that doesn't sound like that we're on the same page here.
And then one other one, I just had a mod return for budget difference. It turns out at the top of the mod, only the first year was selected. I checked all the years and it balanced out. Is this a common thing to look out for?
Ooh. So one of the years was out of balance, but overall it matched. That,
That's what it sounds like.
well, I guess I'm not sure, and I might have to have a more professional answer this, but I do know that with the plan is that this information is going to feed directly into from Sage into Workday, and that it does need to match each year to the penny. And so I'm not sure how it could be off on one year and then balance out overall, because it seems like there's got to be like something else that's then off the other direction. But if that kind of helps with the guidance, I think each year really should just end up with the difference at the bottom being 0. And I'm totally open to being wrong about that. Because Sage is not hard.
Okay, one more question before I move on to the next topic.
Okay.
When campus puts a comment on a mod or ASR, does GCA receive an email or get any kind of notification about the comment?
Great question, and the answer is no, we do not. So if you have a question about something and you would like an answer timely, I would recommend using GCA Help.
Okay, if we can move on to the next topic.
Next item, okay. My next one is about advance requests and kind of like, okay, I'm just so sorry. I'm moving stuff left and right here. And a little bit is about being strategic about when you go for, I'm going to do when to go for an advance and how. So the first thing is for everybody to know that if you have an advance in place, converting it from advanced status into a permanent status or a regular, if you will, is super low priority. You have your grant lines so you can do your spending. And so we're kind of putting that to the back because we have people that need their grant lines. And so we're going to work on those. So when would you not want to get to have an advance? And that would be like if you have a subaward you want to get issued right away, the advance won't help you because OSP subs will not issue or initiate a contract if the grant line is in advanced status, which I just learned. So for something like that, it's better to just ask us to prioritize the award, the ASR or the mod, depending on what it is. And the same is true for invoicing. If you have a sponsor that's like, you guys are going to have to get this invoice out to me right away. Invoices cannot be issued while the award is in advance. And that's true that's not changed from the old system. We would not issue invoices, nor would we draw funds because the contract hasn't been fully processed. And so again, I would suggest asking for that a form for the award setup request or mod to be prioritized. If all you need is like, you know what, we just want to post our expenditures, we don't have to invoice for a while, or we just want to put our stuff all in one spot, then those cases, the advance line is beneficial. That's when it's going to help. And a lot of this we just are kind of learning as we go along. So that's why I'm sharing. So I also just kind of grabbed some general information. So the 3 types of requests, you can have a brand new advance for a whole new award period. A brand new one means that there's no relationship to an existing project. A renewal is perhaps year 2 or year 3 of a project. And then an advance extension just extends the period if you're not expecting, usually there's no new money involved in these, but it certainly could. And then we also wanted to note that the longest an advance award period could go for would be like 12 months, unless you have a clinical trial. Those tend to take sometimes a couple of years to get set up. And so there's an allowance to go out 18 months for a clinical trial. Something else that we also learned just pretty recently is I've outlined these two separate ways, but the answers are, because the outcome is the same. And that is what happens if you request an advance line on an existing project, but it turns out it's a separate segment or a whole new project. And unlike in the old system where we could just take your budget and kind of link it to wherever it needed to be, we can't do that anymore. Workday's intended to kind of integrate in a particular way. And so at the end of the day, we have to cancel that the new award. Wait a minute, I'm backwards on this. We have to cancel that line, and we are going to have to set up a whole new award, and then expenses would need to be transferred into that new project. And conversely, is if you request a brand new advance and you get a new award and all that stuff, but it turns out it actually is part of a bigger project or, continuation. We basically, one more time, is we want to create a new line under the correct project or award. Expenses would need to be transferred, and then we would cancel advance. That is a lot right there. So all I'm going to say is that's a lot. And if you have questions about like, is this an advance or is this a new project? Sometimes it's okay that's a good time to ask GCA, I'm not sure. And the answer a lot of time lies in the award document. So you can also check that. And this is because I think like I'm 4 years old. I had this epiphany where I realized in the old system, you would get a new budget like for a 3-year project. And in my mind, I was like, it's kind of like you get 3 little houses. Each budget period was sort of its own little thing, and you put them all together and they created a street or a neighborhood. But in work, it's really different. You just have one structure. You have one building, and every year kind of becomes a floor under that same roof. And so that kind of helped me. And so I thought maybe it would help other people. So I put it out here. That's what you're building, is you're not building a kind of a linear neighborhood. You're building more of a multi-storied thing. And that's why you have one award and all these lines are under there. Kind of each year represents a floor. We do have on our website a pretty good video about kind of like how to know if it's renewal or, kind of what's going on from a prior forum, from I think a summer forum that we did. And I know that is probably a lot. Take a pause here.
Okay, so one question is, I'm planning to submit an advance request soon for multi-budget center, which includes pilots. The main core budgets of the center are the same, but pilots are new budgets that are not continuing from last year. Is this still okay as an advance renewal?
I would say we'd want to take a look, see for something specific. That would be a good email to us and just say, can we talk about this and make sure I'm making the right move? Because because it's just important that a whole project is together. That's kind of where we're going with this.
Let's see the next one. How can we identify pending no-cost extension from no-cost extension in Workday?
A temporary extension will have a status that says temporary extension. Am I answering this right? And a regular, I feel like I'm not answering this right. Michelle, what is it?
It's like differentiating a temporary extension from actual extension in Workday.
Yeah, okay, I did answer it. So we do have, there's a status now, which we did not have before. This is like one thing I'm like, we have this now. You will see different statuses on your line and it'll say temporary extension or it'll say advance, and that's how you know it's not permanent or regular. And a regular extension, your date just changed and off, it looks normal.
And I'll also say, Cheryl, hi, good morning, my name is Vince, that you also will see in the award schedule. And so usually when you have funded years within Workday, in the overview tab, if you scroll down, there's a schedule. And what you'll see is it'll have, year 1 and year 2 for a temporary internal extension period. They'll add another period and it'll say temporary extension. And what you'll also see is that up at the very top of the award, you'll see contract start and end dates. And so if we are outside the sponsor sanctioned start and end date, that's seen in an award document, that's where you'll see the contract start and end date. But if you have something like a temporary extension, that's where you'll see that your award line may extend beyond the contract end date because you haven't got that sponsor approval in hand quite yet. So
that is great. Thank you, Vince.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I want to make sure we have time for other things. Up next is Patrick, and he's going to talk more about ASRs and mods.
Thank you, Cheryl. So as was mentioned, I will be talking about making sure your ASRs and mods are in good working order before sending to GCA. So first, let's start with why it is important. As was touched on by Cheryl, our setup volumes continue to remain extremely high and backlogs are still large. While they are going down, it is taking time to get through items. Incorrectly routed items create a back and forth and duplicate that processing, adding to the backlog and time needed for our setup team to process items. And while resubmitted items are prioritized, they are not currently gotten to immediately. So if your item is not in good order and needs returned, this will further delay your processing time for that item. One tool we have created to help get items in good working order is the mod checklist. These are meant to accompany your mods to make sure you have the typical things that GCA needs for the mod to be processed. This can include the type of mod notification, the PI, the Sage budget, etc. Tips for GCA only mods. First, please make sure that these are mods that do not require sponsor approval. If the mod does require sponsor approval, please use the appropriate OSP GCA mod. If a mod is routed incorrectly and needed to go through OSP first, the mod will completely need to be denied and a new mod created, causing you to have to create a second mod. Below are a list of examples of GCA only mods. Some of them, like a cost center change, can always be a GCA only mod. Others, like terms of rebudgeting, depend on the sponsor's terms in the award, so please make sure you are familiar with whether or not your sponsor requires these have approval or not. Common return reasons for GCA only mods include no Sage budget snapshot in the comments and history, or Sage budget export in the attachments section, and or missing cost share addendums. So those are common items to please make sure you have before sending the mod our way. For OSP GCA mods, these are the opposite. These are all mods that do require sponsor approval. And for these, it will need to be routed through OSP and GCA. For these mods, please make sure that you select all categories that reflect the type of change being requested. All mods require at least one selected, but you can choose more than one on a mod. Please attach all agreements and correspondence with the sponsor for the accompanying mod, so that way we can document any and all changes necessary. Please add comments to indicate what you are requesting, and this includes any UW award line, work tag, GR number that is impacted. A common example is for no-cost extensions. Similar to the old system, where you would have to include a sub-budget number to also be extended, please include the additional award lines that you would like extended along with the primary. Sage budget worksheets. Sage budget worksheets require all fields to be completed. This includes the cost center, the hierarchy, PI, title, etc. You will need a completed Sage budget for each award line under the mod and/or ASR request, with all information included. The Sage budget must match your award amount exactly. Details for how to complete the Sage budget can be found at Sage Budget's help. There is a link provided in the slides when this goes out live after. And additional resources for completing the Sage budgets can be found at the bottom of that link. This includes tips for how to get your award amount to balance exactly out, as we are aware that rounding issues can cause problems. Here is a list of resources where you can find all of the information provided in this section. Again, these links will all be accessible when the slides go live after the meeting concludes. Are there any questions?
There are a few. So the first one is, if the addendum is on the EGC1, do we need to attach it to the mod?
Then, oh, cost share? Yes, please attach the addendums to the mods if you're submitting for cost share changes.
And then next question, do I do a mod to GCA only when moving funds from participant budget to the primary budget, which we have received sponsor approval for?
So if it required sponsor approval, I believe that would be an OSP GCA. Although most the times moving between award lines, so similar to our old TPU process, that would be not, that would be a GCA only mod, but for those types where it would be like a rebudgeting that the sponsor does need approval for, that would still be an OSP GCA, yeah.
And then maybe one more question. On the ASR, we list 100,000 for subaward to the subrecipient. Then at time of the sub, we decide we want to issue a different amount. Do we need an approved rebudgeting mod prior to issuing that through OSP subs?
I'm not sure on that. Is anyone, am I not understanding the question?
You can take that one back.
I was gonna say, I might want some.
Michelle, can I answer one of the questions live?
Yeah.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. I'm Lily. One of the questions is in the chat, I think is probably good to raise for everybody. The question is for cost center changes. Are you aware of any consequences that might surprise departments? I am aware that we should not submit changes when transactions are in flight. When a cost center change is submitted to GCA and we update it in Workday, you do have to go in and update any payroll costing allocations that are associated with the grant work tag, and purchase orders and kind of procurement actions that might also be associated with the grant work tag, because those actions, they're in flight, their cost center won't update while they're in process. So you do have to touch payroll and non-payroll transactions that are in flight associated with the grant work tag. If you want the cost center change to apply to previously posted transactions, then you also have to do accounting adjustments or cost transfers from the old cost center to the new cost center. which happens mostly if the cost center maybe came over in conversion incorrectly, or you're trying to correct an erroneously provided cost center. So yes, but that's not in all cases. If it's a prospective change, of course, you don't have to do the expense transfers. But if you do want previously posted transactions to be associated with the new cost center, then yes, you do need to do that. So I think those three things might be news to some of our campus customers. One thing that we're working on now is an FAQ that could articulate all of the changes that you need to do. Unfortunately, because we don't have access to things like payroll costing allocations or purchase orders, we're trying to get some screenshots that will be helpful in indicating what you specifically need to do. But yes, cost center changes do have downstream impacts that are pretty significant. So thank you to the person who posted that in the chat.
Alrighty. Thank you for the questions. If there is nothing else, I will pass it on to Jonathan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan, and before I hop into my topic, I just want to touch on we have been bouncing off the attendee cap basically constantly the whole point of the whole time of the forum. So if you guys have I don't know if you guys saw there was a Q&A that was answered, but if you guys have some people that are saying they can't get in, they're probably not making it up. I've confirmed there is a cap of 300, which is more than we've ever had. We've never run into this issue before. But so this is something we're going to have to maybe talk about after the forum to see what our options are. But so just to say, you're not hallucinating, it is happening. Anyways, so good morning. I'm Jonathan, and today I will be talking about the new Workday Award Lifecycle statuses and giving you an update on the return of the auto close function. All right, so first up is a crosswalk between our legacy FAS status codes and the new status codes we have available in Workday. As you can see, there are quite a lot of them. We only had 4 in the legacy system, but we have 9 in the new system, which allows a lot more flexibility and granularity in addressing the different situations we can encounter. Most of these statuses are fairly straightforward, so I won't go into too much detail here. Good Lord, who is clicking? Someone is clicking. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. This crosswalk will be available as a reference after the forum, and I have a link to another one that's on our website here, which will be on the slide that we provide after the forum. All right, so with that said, there are a few changes that do bear some additional discussion, as there wasn't a one-to-one relationship between the old and new statuses. To start with, one of the biggest concerns that we hear about is panic over award lines in expired status. And do not worry. While the name does sound a bit scary, award lines in expired status are still fully open to expenditures. That status flip is just an indicator that we are past the award period end date. The only restriction on these lines is that you will not be able to set up new salary allocations. This was actually touched on, I think, one of the previous presentations, but we do have 2 new statuses in the form of advanced spend and temporary internal extension. And neither of these are new to GCA or UW, but we haven't previously had a specific status for either of them. This has some benefits, as it will be much easier to tell the difference between a fully executed active award and one in either of these statuses, but it will also be a bit of an adjustment. The system will not allow an award to have award lines with both statuses. So if you think for some reason that your award should have both a temporary internal extension line and another one that's an advanced spend, please reach out to GCA so that we can work with you on finding an appropriate path forward. Continuing on, we have the dearly departed status 2. Particularly sharp-eyed people in the audience may have noticed on the crosswalk that there was no equivalent to legacy status 2 in Workday. This was not an oversight. Status 2 only had a few rather uncommon use cases, and these have been entirely absorbed by other statuses and functions within Workday, so a replacement was not set up. We will miss you, status 2. And last but not least is the new closeout in progress status, which is roughly equivalent to legacy status 3. Campus users might be a bit surprised by this one, as it is significantly more restrictive than status 3 was. Where status 3 would allow certain types of transfers to post, closeout in progress is intended to be a hard stop where nothing can post. There is currently a glitch where certain PAAs can post to closeout in progress award lines, but this is being investigated and should be resolved in the near future. And these changes will have additional implications as we discuss the returning auto close function on the next slide. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, the days of the Wild West of grant accounting will be coming to a close as we are set to resume systematic auto closes of award lines past the final action date. Most of you will remember that this used to be the norm before FT. The system would automatically close award lines to expenditures after the final action date had passed to allow GCA sufficient time to prepare final invoices and reports in keeping with sponsor-provided deadlines. After FT, things have been hectic, to put it mildly, and between the lack of an auto flip system and how difficult it was for campus units to get expenditures applied to their award lines, the old rules were thrown to the curb in the mad rush to get invoices and reports out wherever and however we could. This did, unfortunately, come at a cost of compliance with sponsor deadlines, with varied consequences for individual researchers, campus units, and the university itself. As such, and given that the situation with posting expenditures is significantly improved, the decision has been made to re-implement our internal deadlines. We don't currently have a set ETA for this. The developers are working out to hammer the last details, but we wanted to let you know that we expect this change to be implemented in the next few months, and we will share more details as they become available. All right, so what do campus users need to know about the closeout process right now? Well, first, campus users should be aware that there is no current automatic closeout process. Up to this point, the priority has been getting charges posted over meeting deadlines, and with all the pressure on all the other streams, GCA has not had the capacity to resume closeout functions. Our reporting and invoicing teams have begun manually flipping award lines to closeout in progress when they process final invoices and reports, but some award lines remain open to expenditures well after the award has ended. Any campus user who has an award line that they want to ensure is closed to expenditures can submit an award portal ticket requesting that GCA flip the line to close out in progress at any time. These flips are relatively quick to do and are not permanent. As long as you are before the final action date, you can request that we reopen the line to expenditures as well. So you can use these status flips as a safeguard to prevent unwanted charges from posting. As a final note, campus users should keep in mind that closeout in progress is more restrictive than legacy status 3. Obviously, this will become more impactful in the future when closeout autoflip is implemented, but this will still have impacts in the current system as campus users finalize their expenditures. And that is it for me. Are there any questions?
There's just one question. Is there any discussion regarding status that does not allow expenses to post but allows transfers? It can be hard to close a budget when you are waiting for a shared environment to process transfers and cannot prevent new expenses from posting.
I am not aware of any discussions on that, but that does not mean that those discussions are not taking place. But given that we haven't heard any murmurings of that, I would think that it would be a while out, if anything.
I don't mind piping in on this. I would say that once you're past the final action date, everything should be done. And we've usually allowed ourselves a little bit of time to try to prepare that final invoice to meet a sponsor's deadline or the due date for a final report. That's what those final action dates are all about. And that's what's really driving the statuses and driving the hard stop on expenditures, because you can imagine, like, I prepare a final invoice and then a couple days later some charges slide on, and now my final I don't know, we don't know, and we're usually not informed. So I kind of, like, me looking forward, I think the hard stop is actually really good, and what that's going to do is make so that you kind of have to contact us before and say, hey, wait, don't do the final invoice or don't do the final report yet. We're transferring some charges, and then we can kind of give you a new deadline. Your status can be opened, the stuff can post, and then we know we've got a really quality final invoice or quality final report. That's the goal in every case. I can tell you from last year, you guys know pretty much every forum I was talking about the late charges. And so we would leave budgets open and charges wouldn't post for months. And I don't see that as something Workday's not going to allow that. So I think we can work together, and for transfers, not a problem. Those usually go through really fast. So first, I think my advice was goal 1, try to get all that done by the final action date, which you can find under the grant information in award portal. And if you are close, but it's within a day or 2 of that final action date, send us an award portal ticket and let us know what's coming.
Maybe one more question. How do you determine the final action date?
Cheryl wants to answer that. Go for it.
I sure do. So the final action date is in fact determined by the sponsor's due date. So if a report it's usually based on either a final invoice. When did we agree to give the sponsor a final invoice? And so we try to give you as much time as we can. Most agreements give us like 60 days. And so you'll have like 53, I think we take a week on an invoice. But some sponsors give us like no time. They want their final invoice on the last day, and those are tricky. Some sponsors want it in 30 days. Those are also tricky. That means you have to get all your stuff posted, within that 30-day window. And we still need a couple days to prepare that invoice. For reports, if the federal ones are kind of nice, they usually give us, 90 days that we give you most of that. We do take a few weeks because those are a little more complicated to prepare. But the answer is that it's based on what the sponsor has determined as their due date for a report or an invoice. And we just sort of back into that. So hopefully that helps.
And if we can move on to the next topic.
Hello, I'm Susan Wilbanks, and this is our last topic. I'm going to try to move through it pretty quickly, just being aware of the time as we're approaching midday and lunchtime. So we have 3 main methods for you to contact us in GCA. We have the award portal system, we have our GCA help email, and we have our phone line, which is open from 9 to noon and 1 to 4 every day. Award portal is the system that's best to use whenever you have an award number in place and want to send communication that is internal to UW. You cannot CC sponsors or other non-UW stakeholders because they will not be able to access the ticket. The advantages of award portal is it keeps the communication associated with the award readily accessible throughout the life of the award and its retention period afterward. So anytime you need to go back and look up what happened with that particular reporting or invoicing problem or whatever, it's right there in award portal. Also, everyone in the department and GCA who are working with the award can view the tickets, even if they were not originally CC'd on it. It's right there in the system, which is an advantage you don't have in email. So some tips and tricks for using award portal. Do not open multiple tickets about the same issue. This can lead to confusion and duplicate work, especially when the tickets are under separate topics. Say one of them's in other and one is in closing. We ask that you only reopen a ticket if you have a question or new information on that specific issue. Otherwise, you want to start a new ticket. Sorry, this is jumping around a little bit here, since we have shared access to the slides. Yes, so the reason for starting a new ticket instead of reopening one is it keeps that separate question easy to locate. Again, if you're going back for research later, It can get a little confusing when you have multiple issues on the same ticket because the subject line stays the same. And so it makes it harder to find what's going on with the newer question. We also ask if you have a related issue on multiple GRs, on multiple grant lines on the same award, say you want to close or reopen a set of award lines, please send a single ticket under the primary parent award line. That's better for us and for you than having, say, 10 separate tickets, because we can just move through them all at once and you don't have the sort of lag time of creating for you and closing or updating for us each individual ticket. Moving on to email, this is the best form of communication that you should use whenever you need to include a non-UW stakeholder in the communication, since they can't see the award portal tickets. It's also good to use for general questions, issues involving multiple awards, or when you don't yet have an award number in place. And finally, the phone. This is primarily for urgent questions or issues where a response is needed more quickly than our 1 to 2 business day turnaround for inquiries coming in through email and award portal. And we have a few hints on what not to do. We ask that you do not send emails to GCA employees' personal UW addresses. Use that GCA help email instead. The problem with personal emails, if that employee happens to be out, I think all of us are pretty good about setting up out of office messages for planned absences. But if you have an emergency and you're unable to set that message for whatever reason, you're not going to know that no one is seeing your message. Whereas if it was sent to GCA help, someone else could pick up for that staff member who had the emergency and answer your question. Also, I will say that I am in GCA help all day, whereas I'm in my personal email maybe a little bit at the beginning and ending of the day. Our work is focused in GCA help. We also ask that you not contact GCA employees via Teams. You can request, or we may initiate, a Zoom or Teams meeting to enable a group conversation or a section where screen sharing would be helpful, but the initial contact and scheduling should be via email or award portal. And the reason for this is kind of the opposite one from personal email, is that Teams can be a bit disruptive in the sense that it's constantly sort of popping up, and it might disrupt if you're in the middle of a complex item. And for duplicate requests, these are really create a problem for us because we currently have very high volumes. Typically, we have anywhere from 150 to 200 emails, and that's not counting things that are like out of office messages or any kind of sort of here's your login code for a two-factor identification code or something like that. This is actual actionable emails, so that's just a huge volume. And we can have anywhere from 50 to 100 or a little more award portal tickets as well. And so there's no way that one person can be able to confirm readily that, oh, wait, there was also an email about this if they're working in award portal. So you end up with 2 people working on the same item. And this duplicate work is especially a problem given our current high volumes, because any time that 2 people are researching the same item, that's time that one of them could be spending on another one of the many items we're trying to research and resolve. We also ask that you don't email us on an issue that's already in award portal or vice versa. It's a sort of a especially challenging form of duplicate items, because it's even more likely to lead to duplicate work because, as I was saying, it's if you're working in award portal, you're not necessarily going to see that inquiry that is in email. The exception here is if you need to add a non-UW stakeholder to the conversation, it's okay to move it from award portal to email, but please reference the award portal ticket number and or the GCA employee you've been communicating with, because that way whoever is triaging the email will know where that should go. And on very rare occasions, it's okay to call us about an email or an award portal ticket if the issue requires immediate attention. Say you forwarded something from a sponsor where they're asking for something by the end of the day, and you know, that we might not see it till the next day unless we have that phone call calling it to our attention. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, then.
All right, that concludes our forum. Our next forum will be in May. Thank you again so much for attending. I will send out a survey to get your guys' opinion on how we did today. Again, thanks for attending. Bye.